For the past 40 years or more, Killeshandra in County Cavan has been the location for one of the longest running Irish music sessions in the country. Hosted by 3 pubs in total, Kelly's Bar, Hillside Tavern and Hayes' Bar, it has played a huge part in the lives of local and travelling musicians. Famous for its welcoming and easygoing atmosphere, the session attracted some wonderful musicians, singers and dancers over the years. But, as is life, it has lost some notable characters too, namely Larry Masterson, Seamus Smith, Patricia Fitzpatrick, Donald Kelly and recently Ted Sweeney. These people were in our memories when we put this video together over the past month or so. This film was cleverly put together by Dimitri at Yago Studio and has succeeded in capturing everything that is important about the Thursday night session and why it has lasted for so long. We hope you enjoyed the film and thank you to everyone involved.
Well, the very earliest memory for me would be coming from the hall from band practice. And I reckon it was around winter time, 84. Myself and Pauline would go down for a drink to Seamus. It was only after opening at the time. And that's sure, after a week or two we started to play a tune ourselves. And then we got Brian to join the band to teach the accordion. I'm sure that he had to go for a pint as well. And basically it started from there, as far as I'd be concerned, and the main man that kept it going to me would be James Cosgrove and Ted, because I was out of it after 2006.
The session just a little bit before that, it was a decision. I called a meeting in the Shamrock Lounge and Ted Sweeney attended Martin and I brought Jerry in to do the drums.
Right.
And it was then progressed on to fundraising for uniforms and stuff like that. So we
for the youth band?
Yes, for the youth band. Sorry, the meeting was for the youth band.
Yeah.
And then we started to just practice, and we were practicing in the hall and it was freezing cold. Yeah. So we asked Seamus Riley, could we go up and there was an old fireplace out the back.
Yeah.
And we were so bad, we used to finish when people come in. That is the truth. So
you were hidden away for a
we
while,
were hidden away, and gradually became, more and more. Brian Caffrey joined us from Cornafane.
Yeah.
And later than that, then it was Brian Mulligan. Packy Teevan was a great stalwart as well. He turned up every Thursday.
Yeah.
James Cosgrove joined us then, and then James introduced Marion Riley, and she joined us.
Very good.
So out of that came, just various people like Jerry and Hilda Brady.
Yes.
And
The Smiths then.
it went from the Smith family, is right, Seamus, Sharon, Martin, and can't forget
Sharon
that.
and
Maria and the Whistle, yeah. And that came out of the mother was killed, and Seamus was bringing the children out like my dad did when my mum was killed, out into music and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
So that's how that started, and it was mainly for fundraising, for the youth. Yes, so we were driving from town to town, begging for money for the uniforms.
Well, my earliest memory would be when our son Donal took over this place. I came in every Thursday night, and the big joke and the big fun was I always brought in sandwiches, and I was the queen of the sandwiches, and that was great fun, of course.
And the people that were in the session at that time when I first joined was Ted Sweeney, Paddy McDermott and Carmel, Hilda and Jerry Brady, Donal Brady, James Cosgrove, Seamus Smith. Is that everybody?
They were the old reliables.
The old
anyway.
reliables that I can think of, and Seamus Charles. And my brother Donny would come out and play his guitar and bouzouki and sing a song towards the end of the night. So that was when we first started. Once his hornpipes got played at the end of the night.
That's right, the Plains of Foyle, yeah. We have very, very happy memories from here, but sadly our son passed away suddenly at the end of December 2018, so it changed everything for us. But we're very happy that it's in very safe hands.
I suppose when I joined, I think Ted and of course and Jerry, Martin, Pauline and Brian. And I joined in with about 3 or 4 tunes, I think, and mustered through it as best I could, and was encouraged by everybody. And it just went from there, and it was great to have Pauline there as a support. And she always gave a lovely rendition of some nice songs and whatnot. And every week, I suppose, we learned another tune, and it just went from strength to strength, and just kept going. And I suppose it all started in our house all those years ago with Daddy, James and Ted used to come out to play music, and that's really where it started for me as well.
It's so long ago, but for some reason, Marion Whale, I probably would have met her for the first time, and Pauline McDermott, they stay in my mind. And then gradually I got to know all the others, Seamus, Charles, Ted. Well, I'd have known Ted prior. And it was Jerry started coming to the session first, actually. And he was only a beginner of the fiddle at the time. I had small children at the time and wasn't coming initially. So then I started to come and sure met. I remember, it nearly seems like it was a different pub. We were in a different area. I remember in particular some people from, I think they were from Waterford, and I remember Paddy at that particular time. And a particular tune, the something bacon, or the Munster bacon, I think it was. And Paddy picked up that tune from these visitors, and we learned it and carried it with us for a long time. And then it went on, and we got older, and some of our children came along, and these lads, John was getting to be a big fella, and all our children were getting big and joining us. And then in the latter years when we were here, when Kellys were here, we used to have some visitors from Longford and Leitrim, Noel Carberry and Jerry Bowen, and we had some marvellous tunes.
I should say I remember Jerry and Martin's father playing in Laird, and I remember Tommy playing when I was a child, Paddy's father. Tommy played in Seamus's. So like 4 generations of your family have played in there. You're talking about generations. I suppose I can't exactly say my first memory, but one of the memories I have from early on is having Sheila in the carry tot. So she was probably 4 months, so maybe March, April, 86, because she was born, or 87, she was born November. So, it is that group, you know, that are there, you know. But Ted always talked about Seamus Smith and the depth and wealth of music that he brought to the session. You know, that his contribution was enormous to the session. And I suppose I always associate Killeshandra with that session with fiddles and flutes. And then the other side was the 8 to 80-year-olds, to me, is a proper Killeshandra session. Where you have, and I do think that 2 things have contributed to it is no microphones and no money. And no stars. And there's room for everybody. And no one tries to take over. You know, there's always room for one more musician in that session. Do you ever notice that?
Yeah.
You know, no matter how small the pub is.
Whether you're starting or
yeah.
and if you only one tune or 10 tunes.
Yeah. And I suppose like this there is a great flowering of music around Killeshandra. And it is thanks to Tommy. Tommy was a great teacher. Your father. Your father taught as well. He taught ye and Martin. We had a Norwegian girl staying with us at one stage, and that was about maybe in the probably just before you were born, maybe about 93, 94, somewhere around that time. And it was late. It was about 1 o'clock or 1:30, and the guards were at the door. So we all hopped out the back and across the wall into TN's. Well, it made her stay in Ireland, escaping from the guards. She thought she was. She thought
in history.
This is it, yeah.
Lovely.
But yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing session. You should all be very proud of yourselves. And then this next generation. Do you want to stand over the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
My first musicians off them playing, as it wouldn't have really been the session, but it would have been when they came in after band practice.
Band practice
And
on
they
the
used to sit down at the end of the bar where there really wasn't seats. There was barrels, and they used Pauline McDermott,
Jerry
Duffy,
Martin
Duffy, and Ted would come in then, and they would sit and they'd be talking about the band and what to do with the band, and somebody would start to play a little tune, and then the rest would play a tune. And I'd bring out cushions for them to sit on because there was no tables. There wasn't.
God forbid you the furniture. You know
it wasn't. It was where you put the stuff, and they would play away. And that's my first memory. And I can't just remember how it transitioned. You said, was it you that said they moved into the little room down the back at the fireplace, and then maybe the new lounge was opened up and they moved in there. Then.
Yeah.
And then it just
went off.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful because everybody could play then. There was children come in to play.
They used to sit behind Jerry Duffy.
Yeah, and
that was his thing. If you weren't that confident about playing, remember Marius, I remember Tina and Denise, and they'd sit on a stool in behind him.
Didn't want
Nobody
to play
was
really,
at them.
you know. Yeah, but they'd never. The musicians would never make anything. They'd never, you know, say, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't play this. It was everybody play. It was beautiful. Yeah, that's my first memory of it now. Yeah.
I mean, first memories are being down in the hall, being invited down to help the very progressive marching band, which was really going well at the time, to help them with the tunes. And I had played in the Cornafane marching band for years and was fairly familiar with all the marches and all that, so I was enjoying doing that. And then one evening was invited by Jerry, I think, down to play a few tunes. Pauline was going down, Martin was going down, I think, and Ted, of course, they were all involved with the marching band, like, you know. So down we went to Seamus's, and it started from there. So then we met Marion, James, I don't know who else was there. James Cosgrave, yourself.
So James Charles was there.
Then Seamus Charles, and it evolved from there. So it was, it really took off. It was great. And
Seamus Smith in the
yeah, well then
I can't remember the year. You're getting on a bit, you know.
It got so popular then, and we were being invited to play at every wedding, wake and funeral that was going, really, because people were coming in and listening, and it went on like that for a few years. But then again, I sort of fell away for lots of reasons, because I was still doing shift work and football, playing football and family and everything. So, but absolutely thrilled to be back, still playing there now in the last few years and enjoying it.
Different people came at different times, and Enda was here for just after he came back from England, and he spent I suppose it was 12 months or maybe 2 years he was here on a regular basis. And of course Colm Duffy and...
That's right, and Anna came as well. And I would have been very young when I started coming in with Daddy first.
Then Seamus Smith, of course, arrived in with his flock. And you came
I'm not sure
religiously every week.
We came every week. Once we came in, because Daddy wouldn't have been a man for the pub at all. And once he came in, then sure he just loved the music and we used to come every week.
In and they were a great session because great lift because he just started to play and there was no talk.
There'd be no talking, Daddy would just keep playing and tune after tune, and like yourself, Jerry, keeping the tunes going as well.
So of course I only had started to play not too long before that, so I basically was learning with so I'd have a new tune got or whatever, and Sharon would have it picked up in a few minutes.
Don't say that now.
And vice versa. I'd be write them down sometimes for me.
Yeah, but it was great for me too because I was only playing at home, I suppose, with Daddy at that stage. I was very young, and then once we came in here, that was it. Every week we came in and learned all our tunes here.
Yeah, so we basically built up our repertoire. I learned them at home, and then she'd be listening to them.
You used to say that you'd be learning them for ages from the notes, and then Hilda just pick up the fiddle and play it.
I was very late into this session because, as you were just after mentioning there, it was a late start and a late finish, and it didn't suit me going to school in the morning so I wouldn't have been involved for years. I was near retirement. I'd say about 3 or 4 years before I retired, I started coming. And it coincided with the demise of Michael and Mary in the Shamrock, because that was our weekly fix, was the Shamrock. Saturday night. In fact, if there was something, Shamrock was called off, Mary would be ringing us to tell us not to come in the night, So, funny incident, when your father, Siobhan, died, Mary rang us to not come in. There was no music, and poor Paddy Riley being dead. And then I heard after they were playing and singing music in Lahore the whole night, and those. But anyway, getting back to the weekly session, so most of the people that are standard, Jerry and Martin and Ted and James and all, they were in situ, and the very Seamus Charles was in full control. So they were the people that were playing when I came first. But I thought there was a wonderful move, Donald Kelly, when he brought in the early start. I think that suited everybody, like Seamus Smith and everyone that had been coming in early. And
it's hard to say, as Mom said, it's kind of hard to distinguish the times, and it was my earlier years between Saturday night and Thursday nights. It was kind of the same. I suppose some people kind of stuck more to their Saturdays, some people stuck more to their Thursdays.
There's different groups, That's right, they went with it.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah, one or
Jerry
the
and
other.
Hilda wouldn't have really come down on a Saturday, I don't think, people like that. So, but I'd say it would have been maybe around that time, the early noughties maybe. I remember being one of the more junior members anyway, that's for sure. First going into, it was in it was Maggie's at that point, I suppose. I don't really remember ever that Seamus being in there.
Oh, that's right.
And Maggie had it at that stage, I think. I suppose most people that are sitting here, and then like I said, Jerry Brady as well, and Hilda Brady and Donald Brady as well, would have been there a lot. Seamus Smith, as you said, and Sharon.
And Martin.
And Martin, yeah. I suppose Donald Riley would have been there the odd time as well, and Who else would you? That's kind of the main. They would have been the main kind of stalwarts, of course, and Larry, who Donald would have been bringing down to enjoy the music as well. It was always those kind of same heads you'd see. I suppose then for me, having Keane and Ronan or people like that maybe coming in was good as well, because it was someone a little bit maybe you could share more in common with.
Your own age group.
Yeah, well, it was nice in that kind of sense to keep that up and going.
Well, do you remember the night of your leaving cert? Your leaving cert? You do, the night of your leaving cert, that's what you did.
Finished leaving cert, yeah.
You played a fantastic session.
Yeah.
In Kelly's that night. Again, Mrs. Kelly was there. Well, the whole gang of you, whatever, yeah. And then the McGartys would. If we ever mentioned Marion and Declan, they would dance half sets too, and that was great entertainment for the tourists as well. That was great, and then
varieties with the tourists.
Yeah.
And Marion's grandson then out dancing as well.
And the McGarty girls, they were fabulous. Yeah. They would dance as well. They'd dance the stars out of the sky.
Yeah, and then
such a variety of people.
That was that, and then obviously when Donald took over Kelly's then as well, he was often playing, and Ailish as well, I suppose.
She got back into it.
Ailish got back into it, yeah, and then I suppose then going up. I suppose then when you and yourself came back, John, and was Jude.
Yeah,
Jude have been in Kelly's. Just about, yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, just before COVID, and then we went up to the hillside. Those naughty sessions that
we were playing in the yard. Well, there was a few sessions. There was a few sessions in somebody else's yard during COVID. This Thursday night session didn't actually.
Oh yeah, hi.
Yeah, you'd be in jail yet, Marianne.
I know. I said to the boys, I said, Mum, I thought you're supposed to be staying so far apart from each other. And we're all sitting there together.
But there is an enormous wealth of talent around Killeshandra.
In the very beginning, it was Pauline, Smith, Gerard, Enda. Myself was down there. And then James started coming in, and Marion. After a while, then Paddy came in, and of course Ted would arrive in whenever it suited him. And it's great to see it going on so long.
Earliest memory for me of the Thursday night session probably would be around 1994, and Mum had just had Michael, and I was around 10, and we're coming back from the hospital having visited Michael, so Dad says we'll pop in here to the session in case we miss it, so we headed in, and I just remember him saying, like, you know, wait till you're asked to be played, and don't be making a show of him, basically. Who was playing at that stage? I suppose the Smith family, Jerry and Hilda, Marion, Ted Sweeney, and all the usual crew, and Donald Riley and Adrian Riley as well, and it was. You know, it was just, I suppose, it was a very nervous time for me as well, just starting off as well, and then when you're James Cosgrove's son, because you've been here for so long, you end up, I suppose people are expecting something as well. So anyway, that was my introduction to the Thursday night session, and I suppose from that then, I had played for a good few years for tourists and that. And then eventually I suppose in my teenage years, and then when I started courting, I moved away from the session a bit, and there was Thursday nights where I used to collect Dad from the session, and then I remember one of the weeks he says, I think this thing's going to finish up. He says, it's not going to go any further, and anyway I kind of got myself in then for the next few Thursday nights, and I suppose from then on then I was trying and make as many and try and keep it alive as much as we could. So that would be it, really.
talk of the piano, the organ or the lute, the bugle or the mandolin, the fiddle or the flute, or any other instrument you've ever gazed upon, but give to me a tune upon the wee melodeon. For I am not the master of this instrument, you see. I'm qualified to make a noise wherever I may be, and I never care a rap about the way the world goes on. I'll always have a tune upon the wee melodeon. I needn't blush to tell you all I love the Colleen Grant. I thought she was the loveliest in holy Ireland. The first time we came acquainted 'twas at the fancy ball. 'Twas given on the mountainside to entertain us all. 'Twas a lovely entertainment and all things were running bright. We disregarded curfew and we kept it up all night. The best part of the programme while the sport was going on, this maiden took a fancy to me wee melodeon. For I am not the master of this instrument, you see. I can kick up a hell of a noise wherever I may be. Whenever I'm disconcerted with the way the world goes on, I'll always have a tune upon the wee melodeon. I love this pretty fair maid for months and months and more. For equal I was sure that I had never met before. She was grand beyond description, only the fairest would surpass. I was fairly fascinated with me charming Irish lass. A rival soon came on the scene and then disposed of me. Although he was unarmed, yet from him I had to flee. I was given marching orders, was set upon the run, with an order to retire with me wee melodeon. For I am not the master of this instrument, you see. I can kick up a hell of a noise wherever I may be. Whenever I'm disconcerted with the way the world goes on, I'll always have a tune upon the wee melodeon.
I was walking to town with the sun going down and my feet feeling sore from the mileage. I was covered with sweat and my clothes were all wet, having spent the whole day making silage. When a lady drove up and she came to a stop, and says I, are you going to Claremorris? Well, she shouted, get in, with a cute little grin, and she told me that she was Claremorris. She was lovely and fair, and her first name was Claire, the daughter of Big Mickey Morris. But the gleam in her eye was the real reason why I fell madly in love with Claire Morris. Oh, her beauty was rare, and I thought then and there how lucky I was to have met her. But I felt ill at ease in the old dungarees, and my Wellingtons often smelt better. Ah, but she was so sweet from her head to her feet, and she looked so delightful and dishy. She was tastefully dressed, and I sure was impressed how she handled her new bits of fishy. She was lovely and fair, and her first name was Claire, the daughter of Big Mickey Morris. But the gleam in her eye was the real reason why I fell madly in love with Claire Morris. I will never forget the next time that we met. Big Tom and his band were in my hill. I was having a jar with the boys at the bar. She came over and stood right beside us. I was wearing a suit and a good dash of brute, and considered myself quite a charmer. So I just couldn't wait, and I asked her all straight, would you like to come home with the farmer? Well, says she with a laugh, do you think I'm a calf? And what is the cause of your hurry? Wouldn't I be a twit to be covered in grit and smelling like that awful slurry? If I gave you my hand, I would own half your land, and I suppose you'd expect me to plough it. Now get on with your dance, for you haven't a chance, for me husband would never allow it. She was lovely and fair, and her first name was Claire, the daughter of Big Mickey Morris. But the gleam in her eye was the real reason why I fell madly in love with Claire Morris.
You're looking for a funny story, and the funny story is your father, John, which would be James Cosgrove. He would never come in, you'd ring him up, there was no mobiles then, you'd ring him up, and the first question he'd say, is Brian there? And if Brian was there, I'll see you in a while. And if he wasn't there, you wouldn't see him.
That's right.
And it developed after that. What way people come, people go, and it just kept going and still going.
Larry, certainly we enjoyed that period. he was enjoying us so much.
It was the highlight of his...
And he used to have, it was the highlight of his week.
Life,
yeah, he just loved it.
In the nursing home when we went to visit him, he always asked, how's the music going to Killeshandra? No, Killeshandra's great, they're great for the music, they're great for the music. He just never could forget it.
And only for Donald Brady, my brother-in-law, he used to bring him down all of the time. And even when he was almost not able to walk, I remember one night the two Donalds helping him out, Donald Brady and Donald Kelly, out to the car.
Time doesn't make any difference to musicians. Absolutely. I don't think they're aware of it, or I don't think they hear it, or I don't think they even know what's going on around them. And there was one night, now it happened lots, but that particular night, they'd play on as people left. You know, they'd finish up and then they'd sit for a wee while and people go and they'd play on some nights and play for a while. But this particular night, everybody gone, only Ted and your father. And we cleaned up the whole bar. There was only me and Seamus, and we cleaned up. The pair of boys played away. There wasn't a word out of them. And we went inside to the kitchen and had a cup of tea and whatever else we had. And we came out and the pair of boys were still playing. And we talked for a while and whatever conversation it was. And the boys were let out the front door, good night. It was broad daylight. And we closed the front door and we went to bed, and our bedroom was over the front door, and as we got into bed the pair of boys were still playing whatever little tune that the two of them had going. Honest to God. And we just went, and we went to sleep. I don't know what time they went home. I had no idea. I hadn't a clue. Yeah.
But the tune sorted by whatever time they were leaving.
You kind of say, how can they still be going over tunes? You know, because they've been playing so long together. But whatever thing was going on with them, they played away. It was lovely actually, because it was a lovely summer's morning, you know. You could understand them standing out there, you know. It was gorgeous, yeah. They were a great group of people. I don't know how it all gelled so well, but they were a great group of musicians and singers and everybody, and it was lovely.
And that was one of the funny things about it. Like, at the end of the night, everyone retired across the road to the chipper.
That's right, actually. I
Every
forgot
week.
about that. Yeah. I never got to any of the parties now, but I did get to the chipper.
No, you hadn't come at the party time.
Yeah, I never heard about the parties. As I say, I just remember being made so welcome. Like when we came in first, like, and we didn't actually know anybody in the session when we came in. Daddy had just heard about the session, and we came in, and it was just lovely. Everybody was so welcoming, and sure, like that was it. For the next 30 years, we were coming every night.
Yeah.
We had a French lady, a French couple that used to come in, Jeanette and Jean-Paul, and she would sing an Edith Piaf song. I think I'm saying that properly. And at the time, that song was on a Specsavers ad. So she came over to sing the song, I remember. And I remember Glenn Shanley was over at the bar, and he just sent me a text and said, should have went to Specsavers. And I just started giggling and I couldn't stop laughing at it. And it was really rude, but he got it at the right time. But she was a great addition to the session as well. It just, you know, especially with French tourists coming in as well, and this lady singing Edith Piaf, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. But another one as well was one night we had these three priests that came in. They were staying with Phil and Brady, and it was unusual to see 3 collars and 3 pints of Guinness sitting in front of them as well. And we got them singing, and they sang some Gregorian chant for us, and it was amazing, but it was just so random, really, really random. And I think that was the thing about the Thursday nights, they were just so random. You could have a guy who went away to Japan and recorded the session the year previous and had all the tunes learnt off and just came in and then knew them better than we did. And then I suppose another funny story maybe was when Donald took over the pub. I would say to Dad, if I wasn't going in, I'd say to Dad, ring me at 9:30 or 10 o'clock to say if there's nobody in that I'll get out of bed. So I was going to bed at about 9:30, 9:45, and I got this call at 10:30 to say it was only himself and Ailish in. So I got out of bed anyway and into town, and he had the sleepyhead on me. And God, next thing the Bowl Ted Sweeney arrived in at 11 o'clock. And a few others, and we had a great session that night. But that was always the way it was kind of. We ended up that we'd always, if there wasn't too many in, Dad'd ring and say, "Come into town, get out of bed." But you know, there was some great times down through the years. You know, there was the drink driving ban as well, and I remember Dad saying, you know, that if you had a curry chip after the session and he had a bottle of milk in the door, I remember, but there was My Waddy orange in the bottle already, so the milk tastes of My Waddy. And I remember he said, this will knock off the breathalyzer, like we'll have no problem at all tonight, just curry chip and the bottle of milk, and that'll sort it all out. But yeah, great memories down through the years, mostly playing for tourists and just playing for French and German and English that came in, and they were always great to play for.
I knew one song and I had 3 chords, Mary from the Low, and I wanted to sing it the other night and I made a mistake. But when the guys want to go to the toilet, It was the pee break, so I was called the pee break. You know, so I had to sing me one song, maybe twice in the night. You know, so.
Well, even Brendan Riley, one person in particular, nobody, as far as I can remember, nobody ever heard Brendan Riley singing. He was there, but he never sang. And the session, I'd say, was going on for quite a few years. And this night in particular, Brendan stood up and started to sing, and the place just stopped. Everybody went, who is it? Who is it? Who's singing? And it was Brendan. And he hasn't stopped since, like, you know, just brilliant.
They've created that environment, I suppose, where
it was really, it was such a natural, easy, there was no hassle to it. It was just sit down and play. There could have been, I remember one night somebody counted something like 14 fiddle players, you know, just playing away. You came in and you just sat down and you just, I don't know how they could all do it. They could just join in and play, and it was just lovely, magic. Yeah, gorgeous times.
I've been away from Ireland now for 50 years or more, but thoughts of home still linger in my mind. Sometimes I gaze across the ocean and my eyes grow dim with tears. Let me tell you of the vision that I see. As a barefoot child I stood there when the summer sun did shine across the steeple of that little church down there. And we gathered every evening when the weather would be fine around the chapel gates in Clare. So in dreams I love to ramble down the village street and meet the boys and girls gathered there, for to sing the good old songs telling of old Ireland's wrongs around the chapel gates in Clare. There were weddings planned and matches made and stories old and new around among the boys that gathered there. And we played those football matches till the final whistle blew. Around the chapel gates in Cooraclare. We would talk about the neighbours, the weather and the times, and who the boys were courting on the sly. We would watch the colleens passing down and bid them the time of day, and perhaps we'd catch a twinkle in their eye. So in dreams I love to ramble down the village street and meet the boys and girls gathered there, for to sing the good old songs, telling of old Ireland's wrongs, around the chapel gates in Cooraclare. Now I'm growing old and weary in this land so far away, but I'll return to Ireland yet, if God will spare. And when all is done, they'll lay me at the closing of my day inside the chapel gates in Cooraclare. Inside the chapel gates in Cooraclare.
the reason that it's lasted is because there's just great people coming to it. Their families started to come then. The music was passed on by great people like Marion, Ted, the Duffys, Paddy, of course. Couldn't forget Paddy. The music was passed on, you know, and then the kids and the talent the kids have now is just unbelievable. And as I say, it's just a pleasure to go in there, and whenever I get in on a Thursday night and just sit and listen to the music, or even if it's only a song or a recitation, you know, and just enjoy the night, and long may it continue.
Just, I don't know how it has gelled, and it has always been a Thursday night, and it just took legs, and has legs, and hopefully no more than we said, the legs keep going.
But I suppose then when the Fla's came along, the Cavan Fla, and sure, it just blew the whole thing out of the water, and the music got so popular.
And a lot of that, I think, is thanks to Ted Sweeney for teaching youngsters there of a Sunday morning or nothing, and bringing them all along there, and that's what's going in now over the last number of years. They're all coming in and the session's going, and hopefully it will go for a long time. That's it. Repeat them with the voice head, and that's great.
It's just the people, really.
People of Killeshandra kept it going, and
there's a great
traditional music.
Yeah, traditional music in the area, and the older ones encourage the younger ones.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. And sadly, we have lost one wonderful man. That was Ted Sweeney, and Ted really encouraged the children. And whether they were good or whether they weren't, he had the same respect for them. And then Seamus Smith, one of the older, he had a lot of the older tunes, and you found that very interesting also, didn't
Paddy
you?
as well, always encouraged the young people to play. So the people keep it going.
That's right, yeah.
Well, it's just amazing because it changed hands five, 6 times maybe. And probably the people who took it over continued to have the interest in it, and there was a cohort of people who continued to come, really, you know, and it just managed to to hang on. There might have been times when there were slim nights, but it kept going anyway. Yeah.
I think it's lasted so long because, as Ted Sweeney used to say to me, I asked him one night, he says, why has it lasted so long? He says, because we don't turn anybody away. And he said every EGIT is welcome. And I don't know whether he's including me in that or not, but it was true. Like, it didn't matter what you played or who you were, you were always given a chance anyway. And I think that was always the way. There was never any snobbery about it. Also, there was just that core gang then of Dad and you know, Marion and Seamus Charles and Jerry and Hill and everybody. But I suppose when we were making this film, it was people were saying I don't, you know, don't be filming me because I wasn't there for all of it. But I think everyone had a part to play in it at certain stages, and that's the reason why it lasted so long, is because one group took over from another, and you know, I think that's the reason why it lasted so long.
down by sunny Ran. Once the fortress and stronghold of O'Reilly's proud clan, since the gallant on road passed away in our halls, the night wind sings thresses round Clochother's old walls. So come to Killeshandra for music and glee, where the linnets are singing on the bramble and tree. You'll get paid meal about you, and good cheer henceforth in this garden of Eden, our Killarney up north.
You know, when the session was going very well, Ted wasn't, he enjoyed talking to people. If there was enough musicians playing, he didn't bother, you know, taking part, or he'd come down later on in it anyway. But around this period, he was coming in late nearly every Thursday night anyway. But on this particular Thursday night, it was Christmas Eve, coincided with Thursday night. And I had to come into town for something in the Peter Owens's. And when I was getting my stuff out, this was the Thursday night. We were going in later, but this was around 8 o'clock or so. And I was coming out from Owens's, and here Ted was going up. It was pouring rain anyway, and him with the fiddle under his arm and a black hat on him, and him heading like Billy up the town. So I went home anyway, and sure later on, that time we weren't starting near 10 o'clock anyway. And where's Ted going at this hour of the night? This man that comes in around 11 o'clock. We went home anyway, got ready, back in, and you see the whole creamery and factory ones were after finishing work, and the place was mobbed. And here was Ted in a stool in the middle of the floor, and him playing the fiddle like Billy O, and about 20 women round him roaring, "Go on, Ted, go on, give her a lash." And that's my story. But you just want to see, you'd want to see what happened before and what happened after that.
Will it last another 40 years? You know, I'd be 81 at that stage, so I don't know. I suppose in 10 years' time, I'd love to see it still running. It's all dependent, I suppose, on the amount of pubs you have in the town and who's going to take it on. But you know, the pubs have been great, and I think they've been very welcoming in bringing us into in playing music, and that was a really good help as well. Is that we were never turned away. You know, whether it was up here in the Hillside Tavern just after COVID, Mr. Fitzpatrick had us in, and then you know, obviously down in Kelly's with Donal, and then now in Hayes as well. So I suppose everybody's been Republicans have been really welcoming to us, but hopefully it'll last another 40 years. We'll see.
Till 1:03, we're till at the door. Will you still be